AEW is where the best wrestle, and according to Tony Khan, it is also where the best women wrestle. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Wrestling. Yes, you add in AEW being the place where the best apparently wrestle. You add in the women's division, and Tony Khan is doubling down. He's saying that his company, AEW, has the best women's wrestling in the world. Now, first of all, I just want to say I'm not a big fan of women's wrestling, so I'm not going to get too upset about this. I know some people are probably pissing their pants at the thought of Tony Khan coming out and saying this, and that's not me saying I agree with Tony Khan. By no means do I agree with Tony Khan, but I look at the women's roster when it comes to Raw, SmackDown, NXT. None of it really impresses me. I look at the TNA women's roster. TNA haven't had a good women's roster in almost 15 years. So is Tony Khan really out of his mind when he says this? What's your thoughts?
Ooh, yeah. No, probably not, because on AEW he says it's where the best wrestle, so if the best wrestle there, I don't make some of the women in there. I would actually say some of the best stuff in AEW is the women, so...
I think Tony Khan has to say this. He can't turn around and say AEW is where the best wrestle, but all our women wrestlers suck. You know what I mean? He kind of has to double down.
Yeah, double down, he's done.
AEW is where the best wrestle, but only the men. Tony Khan's already been accused of really not giving a shit about women's wrestling and not treating them properly and, doing some degrading things. People are claiming that he's bringing women's wrestling back to the dark ages at times. So, he has to try and, I guess, put over the women's division. But this is what he said when talking about women's wrestling in AEW. Tony Khan says, quote, "I think right now, across the board, everyone thinks this is by far the best wrestling in the history of AEW in the women's division. And I think we have the best women's wrestling in the world right now. There's more competition and more talent in the AEW women's division than there's ever been, and more big matches. I think by far 2024 has been the best year of the AEW's women's division. I give so much of the credit to timeless Toni Storm, the world champion, and Mercedes Moné, the TBS champion, and a lot of other great wrestlers like Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale." End of quote. Okay, so Tony Khan signaling out for women there. Can he really say that AEW's women's division is the best because of Mercedes Moné and big matches? She's barely had any matches, never mind big matches.
No, he can't turn around and say that, but he has turned around and say that. And here, whatever you think, WWE's got the bigger roster, but AEW might have the better people if it's slight of it. The AEW women's roster is it consists of 10 people. If we're being fucking truthful about it.
Yeah, do they have the best women wrestlers? Probably not, but do they have the better looking women? I would say so. I'd be willing to give them that, as long as you leave out... What's her name?
Which one?
The one that's not a woman.
Nyla Rose?
That's the one.
That's the one we're going for, yeah. You'd have to leave her out because she's a man, so... Maybe she's the only person that can qualify for being the best, but not the women, because it's Nyla Rose. But, I'll defend Tony Khan. I think Toni Storm's work, and I think that's been some of the best stuff in AEW. And dare I say, it's actually, it's the actual thing in AEW that's focusing more on the entertainment side than the wrestling. But you see with these quotes, he's hitting home the wrestling. We have the best women's wrestling. We have the best wrestling in the history of AEW in the women's division. Why has it always got to do with wrestling? Why can't it just be fucking entertainment? Booker T touched on it earlier. I don't care about 5-star matches. It's about entertainment. That's why people tune in. And the Toni Storm stuff is more... I don't care what she's doing in the ring. I care about the black and white vignettes and the segments.
Yeah, I think Toni Storm is doing... I think she's better. She had a better year than any female in WWE.
Yeah.
So, I might not necessarily agree with Tony Khan that they have the best women's division, but I think that Toni Storm has been performing and operating at a higher standard than any woman in WWE, and I will stick by that. And I know a lot of people are giving Tony slack for this, or not cutting him any slack. They're giving him shit for it. But you know, yeah, he has to come out and say this, but I actually think he's kind of. I think he's got a point. You know what? I actually think he's got a point. So, yeah, AEW, Tony Khan claims it is the best women's roster, does it? I mean, who knows? You look at WWE right now, they don't really have anything interesting going. If you compare Tony Storm's title reign to Bayley's title reign, you can't possibly say Bayley's title reign is better because, I mean, it's just not. On Raw, I mean, Liv Morgan isn't even defending her belt. She's not even getting involved with women. She's doing the whole thing with Dominic Mysterio, and that is interesting. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't. That's not really the women's division. Do you know what I mean? That's a woman that is being incorporated with the men.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't really say what Liv Morgan's doing right now is the women's division.
No.
You know, it'd be like it just doesn't work that way. It's like when Stephanie was with Triple H, or when Lita was with Edge, or when Vicky Guerrero was, you know, fucking in a wheelchair and dishing out all the title shots to Edge. You couldn't claim, oh, look at the women's division's doing great. No, because Vicky Guerrero was just a woman that happened to be interacting with the men. And that's how I feel Liv Morgan. So, yeah, Liv Morgan's doing a good job right now, but I don't necessarily view that as a women's division.
No, it's one person in a feud with nothing to do with the
Because
women.
before Liv Morgan was interacting with Dominic and all that stuff, she was in a feud with Becky Lynch and it sucked.
It was horrendous. It was not good.
So yeah, I think Tony Khan's actually got a point here, but I mean overall, the women's wrestling just fucking sucks. It is what it is.
Tony needs to take his wins, man. He's not had a lot recently, so enjoy it, Tony.
I enjoy it while it lasts, guys. Let us know your thoughts down below. I know a lot of people shit their pants and say, "Oh no, the AEW women's roster sucks," but I mean, look, I like to bash AEW as much as the next person, but I think Toni Storm's been the best female in wrestling for the past year, so I'll give her credit. So, yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts down below, and we'll catch you in the next one. Is Tony, is he correct here, broken clock here twice a day, or is he batshit crazy? And are we batshit crazy for almost kinda agreeing with Tony Khan? You know what, maybe if he turned around and said we've got the best thing going in women's wrestling today, that would be a better way to word it.
Yeah, but of course he had to talk about wrestling.
Yeah, do they have the best women's wrestling though? That I'm not so sure, but I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Is what it is. Oh, well, look at the women. People always praise WWE. I'm looking at Clash at the Castle. I thought both the women's matches sucked. You know,
No,
you
they
look at
did.
both that is what that's what brought the show down in my eyes. So yeah, maybe Tony Khan, maybe the women's wrestling. And actually, because I look at the last AEW pay-per-view that I watched, and I thought the two women's matches were two of the better matches on the show. So, you know, WWE, Clash of the Castle, the two worst matches were the matches involving the women. And at AEW's last pay-per-view, I thought that two of the better matches involved the women. So, yeah, maybe women's wrestling in AEW is doing a wee bit better at the moment. But, yeah, I think it is, you know, because everyone... I remember Britt Baker was like put on this pedestal that she was like great, and we've seen now for like 2 years straight, and she wasn't doing anything. And I mean, the women's division at one, I know people will probably say it's went backwards because I remember Britt Baker having matches and with these other blonde people, and they would just go through thumbtacks and blood. It's been a while since we've seen that.
Yeah, but where is Britt Baker, to be honest?
Yeah, so
She was sitting there bitching about her fucking time to Tony.
yeah. Anyway, guys, that's it. Let us know down below. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.